The coffee cup sat in front of me, steaming softly, its scent strangely sharp, almost chemical, beneath the usual warmth of roasted beans. "For my new colleague," she laughed, placing it gently on the desk beside my keyboard. Her voice was sweet, airy, the kind that could just as easily be kindness or manipulation. It was her first day at the company, and more importantly, the CEO's niece. Her name was Chloe, 22, confident and far too comfortable considering she'd been in the building for less than 3 hours. She didn't hesitate when she walked in either. She'd made comments, whispered to upper management, and casually dropped the words, "Uncle Richard said I'll be taking over the Harper account soon." That account was mine. I'd built it from scratch over 4 years. Late nights, missed holidays, sleepless deadlines. That account was the reason I was still standing after a messy divorce and the reason I'd been shortlisted for VP next quarter. So when she handed me that coffee with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, something inside me paused. My name is Amanda. I'm 34, and I've learned, sometimes the hard way, that when someone laughs too loudly at their own generosity, it's usually not generosity at all. I forced a polite smile. "How thoughtful. Thank you." But I didn't touch the cup. Instead, I watched her. Her eyes flicked to the mug several times. Quick glances, too quick, almost like she was waiting for me to drink. "I heard you're kind of a legend here." She giggled, waving her freshly manicured hand. "Everyone talks about how hardworking you are. Uncle Richard says you practically run the department." She tilted her head, smiling. "But I guess every era ends eventually, right?" There it was. Not kindness. Competition. Aggressive competition. I let out a light laugh, even though something cold twisted in my stomach. "Eventually," I agreed. She smiled wider, satisfied. After she walked away toward the printer, still humming and scrolling her phone, I stared at the cup again. The smell wasn't right. It reminded me of the time I accidentally left my French press unwashed for days. It had the same metallic acidic undertone. Except this was freshly made. Something wasn't adding up. I moved the cup closer, pretending to admire the foam design. A broken heart. How poetic. And waited. The office was busy, noisy enough that no one noticed when I nudged my chair back or when Chloe returned to her desk, just across from mine, typing dramatically like she had something urgent to prove. I didn't think. I just acted. As I stood to pick up some files, I deliberately brushed her desk with my elbow, sending a pen rolling toward the edge. "Oh, sorry," I murmured. She reached to grab it, and in that half second, her eyes down, her hand extended. I swapped our cups. Clean, quiet, invisible. She didn't notice. She just picked up her pen, brushed her hair behind her ear, and resumed typing with that annoying, self-satisfied smirk my heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my throat. Maybe it was paranoia. Maybe it was intuition. Or maybe it was the years of being underestimated, overlooked, and quietly sabotaged that finally taught me to trust my instincts. Either way, I didn't regret it. Not then. Not now. 30 minutes passed. At first, everything was normal. Then her laughter changed. It became short, shaky, forced. She blinked several times, confused, pressing her fingers to her temples. "Did someone turn up the heat?" she muttered, her voice breathless. No one else felt warm. I watched her skin flush bright red. Neck first, then cheeks. Her hands trembled. She took a shaky breath and reached for her water bottle, but dropped it before unscrewing the cap. "Chloe?" I asked softly, keeping my voice neutral. "Are you okay?" She tried to speak, but the words slurred, her tongue thick, her eyes glassy. Then her knees buckled. She collapsed beside her desk, the office erupting into chaos. Chairs scraping, papers falling, voices rising. Someone yelled for HR, someone else called 911. People panicked. I just stood there, still, silent. Watching the mug she'd made for me trembling on the floor beside her hand, the same mug she confidently handed me. the one she never expected to drink. And in that moment, with sirens echoing in the distance and every pair of eyes darting between her and me, one thought repeated in my mind. She didn't make that coffee to welcome me. She made it to replace me. And now? Now the question wasn't whether she had tried to sabotage me. The question was, how long had this plan been in motion? And who helped her? The paramedics arrived fast, faster than I expected for a Tuesday morning. Chloe was still conscious when they lifted her onto the stretcher, but barely. Her pupils looked unfocused, her hands twitching in small, involuntary jerks. The room was tense. Silent except for the paramedics' hurried instructions and the beeping equipment, I stayed back. Not because I was afraid, but because everyone was already staring. Not at Chloe. At me. Maybe they thought I knew something. Maybe they sensed the shift. The unspoken truth hovering in the air like smoke. Our HR director, Marianne, walked toward me, her heels clicking too loudly against the office floor. "Amanda," she said quietly, "can we talk?" My stomach tightened. I nodded and followed her down the hall into a small conference room. The door closed behind us with a soft but final click. Marianne placed her tablet on the table and folded her hands. "What happened?" A simple question, but her tone wasn't neutral. It was careful, controlled, meaning she already suspected something. I took a slow breath. "She gave me a cup of coffee this morning," I said. She said it was a welcome gesture. "And did you drink it?" I hesitated. Not long, but long enough that Marianne noticed. "No," I answered. "It smelled off, so I didn't." Her brows lifted slightly. "And Chloe drank hers?" "Yes," I said. "She did." Another pause. Another unspoken accusation. Marianne tapped her tablet, scrolling. "This isn't the first incident involving beverages in this company." She stopped scrolling and looked at me. "You're aware of the audit?" I stiffened. Audit. I'd heard whispers, rumors of missing client files, unexplained absences, and oddly timed performance issues. But no one had confirmed anything. "Barely," I admitted. "No one ever officially communicated details." She nodded slowly, as if confirming something to herself. "Chloe joined the company 2 weeks ago," she said. "Not today. Today was just her public introduction." I blinked. 2 weeks? Yes. She was shadowing teams remotely, reviewing confidential files, observing presentations. "Why wasn't I told?" I asked. "Because," her voice lowered, "someone requested she be placed under a non-disclosure observation period." I already knew the answer before she said it. "Your CEO," she confirmed. "Richard?" A bitter taste formed at the back of my tongue. Anger, betrayal, confusion. "So, what does that have to do with this?" I asked. "Because," Marianne said slowly, "this morning wasn't just a coincidence. The timing is too perfect." Her eyes met mine steadily. "You're up for VP next quarter. You hold the biggest account in the company. You survived restructuring that eliminated 5 senior managers. Some people may not like how much influence you've earned." It wasn't paranoia then. It wasn't imagination. It was strategy. And I had been a target. Marianne leaned forward. "Tell me truthfully, Amanda. Did you switch the cups?" The room felt colder. My pulse pounded in my ears. "Yes." She didn't react. Not with surprise, not with judgment. "Why?" "Because," my voice cracked despite myself, "I've had people smile to my face and destroy me quietly behind closed doors. My ex-husband, my old supervisor. People who pretended to support me while waiting for the first chance to replace me." I steadied my breathing. And something about her smile told me she wasn't offering welcome. She was offering warning. Marianne sat back, absorbing my words. Then she finally spoke. "The hospital will run toxicology tests. Whatever happens next depends on the results." Before I could respond, the conference room door opened and Richard, our CEO, Chloe's uncle, stepped inside. His face was pale, angry, and strangely unreadable. "Amanda," he said, voice clipped. "We need to talk." I expected fury, accusation, threats. Instead, he dropped into a chair and scrubbed a hand over his face. "She collapsed," he muttered. "They don't know what caused it." I stayed silent. He looked up, studying my expression, maybe hoping for guilt, fear, something he could use. But I only met his gaze. Finally, he leaned forward. "What exactly happened between you two this morning? Not why didn't you stop her? Not how did this occur? But between you two." Meaning, he suspected something deeper. I spoke carefully. "She gave me coffee. I didn't drink it." "And she did," he finished. I nodded. His jaw tightened. Then, to my surprise, he didn't ask another question. Instead, he said something that sent a chill down my spine. "Whatever's going on, whatever she thought she needed to do, someone put that idea in her head. Someone told her you were a threat." His eyes locked on mine. "And I need to know who." Richard didn't wait for me to respond. He stood abruptly and paced to the window, staring out over the parking lot as if searching for answers there. "People don't just poison their coworkers out of nowhere," he muttered. "Someone gave her a story. Someone convinced her you were a problem." His words felt wrong, almost rehearsed, like he already knew pieces he wasn't sharing. I folded my arms. "Richard, did you?" He turned slowly, his expression tightening. Not offended, but caught. "No," he said carefully. "But I may have unintentionally contributed. I told her you were the most ambitious person in the department, that you'd earned every opportunity through grit, not connections. So she saw me as competition. She saw you as a wall she couldn't climb," he corrected quietly. "And some people don't try to climb walls, they try to break them." Silence filled the room. Not the ordinary work silence of keyboards and chatter, but a heavy, suffocating quiet. Finally, Marianne stood. "We should wait for the toxicology report before assuming intent," she said firmly. "Right now, we treat this as a medical emergency, not a crime scene." Richard nodded, though he looked unconvinced. "Go home for the day, Amanda," he said. "We'll call you when we know more." It sounded like a request. It felt like an instruction. I drove home in a strange haze, half numb, half burning with adrenaline. My mind spun with questions. Was this planned? Was it personal? Or was Chloe reckless enough to do something like this without thinking it through? By the time I reached my apartment, my thoughts were a tangled mess. I changed clothes, made tea, and sat on the couch, staring at nothing. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number? "You should have drunk the damn coffee." My breath caught. A second message followed before I could react. "You think switching cups protects you? You think you're smarter than everyone?" My hands trembled, not from fear, but from recognition, because I knew that tone sharp, entitled, threat dressed as confidence. This wasn't Chloe. This was someone older, someone who'd been here longer. Someone who had something to lose. I typed quickly, "Me. Who is this?" 3 dots appeared, then vanished, then reappeared. Finally, a reply. "Some of us are tired of you stepping over people to get ahead." Another message. "You're not as untouchable as you think." My chest tightened. Not panicked, but angry. I wasn't someone who clawed my way up by exploiting others. I worked late. I took extra projects. I earned respect the hard way. If someone saw that as stepping over them, it said more about their insecurity than my ambition. Before I could respond, another call came in, this time from the hospital. I answered immediately. "Hello? Ms. Brooks? This is Dr. Patel from St. Mary's. You're listed as an emergency contact for Chloe Bennett." "Emergency contact?" I nearly laughed. "Yes," I said. "What's happening?" The toxicology results came back. he said, voice clipped and serious. We found traces of modafinil in her bloodstream, an extreme dose. My heart stopped. Modafinil. A cognitive enhancer sometimes misused in corporate competition, strong enough to push the body awake and alert, but dangerous when overdosed. She likely didn't intend to ingest that amount, he continued, but whoever prepared the drink used far more than is medically safe. So it wasn't random, I whispered. No, he said. It was deliberate. My grip tightened around the phone. Doctor, is she going to be okay? She's stable for now, he said softly, but she mentioned something earlier, before she lost consciousness. I froze. What did she say? There was a pause, too long to be casual. She kept repeating, it wasn't supposed to be me. He said she would drink it. My blood turned to ice. He, I echoed. She said he? Yes. My pulse hammered. Doctor, did she name him? She tried, he answered. The name started with an R. Richard, my CEO, Chloe's uncle. But I didn't speak that assumption aloud. Not yet. Not without certainty. Thank you, I said quietly. Please let me know if anything changes. When the call ended, I stared at the wall, mind racing. Maybe Richard wasn't the villain, but someone wanted me to believe he was. Or maybe he wasn't the caring mentor he pretended to be. Maybe Chloe wasn't the mastermind, just the pawn. Another buzz. Unknown number. Careful, Amanda curiosity gets people hurt. This time I didn't hesitate. I saved the messages, screenshotted everything. Then I whispered into the empty room. You threatened the wrong woman. Because if someone wanted a war, they were about to get one. I didn't sleep that night. My body was exhausted, but my mind refused to shut down. Every possibility played in loops. Richard plotting, Chloe being manipulated, someone else orchestrating everything from the shadows. By sunrise, I'd made a decision. I wasn't waiting for answers. I was going to get them. When I walked into the office the next morning, the atmosphere was different. Hushed, tense, charged conversations died mid-sentence when I passed. People stared, not with sympathy, but with suspicion, curiosity, and something else. Fear. Marianne was standing near reception, speaking quietly to a man I didn't recognize. Tall, gray suit, official posture. He wasn't HR. He wasn't a lawyer. He looked like someone who investigated federal fraud or corporate sabotage for a living. When their eyes met mine, Marianne motioned for me to follow them to a private office. Inside, the man introduced himself. Michael Grant. Corporate compliance and internal affairs. I've been asked to oversee an internal investigation following yesterday's medical incident. Medical incident, right. That's how companies softened reality. He opened a folder and turned it toward me. Inside was a printout of text messages, the ones I received last night. My blood went cold. So you already know, I said quietly. We traced the messages, he replied. They came from a prepaid number, purchased with cash. No ID. Of course, amateur enough to threaten me, smart enough to stay anonymous. But, he continued, the purchase timestamp matches an employee keycard leaving the building, 2 hours before yesterday's incident. I leaned forward. Whose keycard? He slid a second page toward me. Highlighted name, Richard Bennett. My stomach twisted. Not shock exactly, but confirmation of something I didn't want to believe. But keycards can be borrowed, I said carefully. Or stolen. Michael nodded. We're not jumping to conclusions, but there's more. He tapped the paper. We found a deleted email from Richard to Chloe, restored from the server backup. Another page, another highlight. If she steps out of line, we'll remind her she's not irreplaceable. Push her out of the Henderson account. Make sure she seems overwhelmed. She'll back off. My pulse hammered. Not poison, not murder, but intentional sabotage. He didn't want me hospitalized. He wanted me discredited. And modafinil? I asked. How does that fit? Michael sighed. Based on preliminary evidence, it appears Chloe may not have understood the dosage. Someone told her it would just make you shaky or unfocused, not send her to the hospital. So she thought she was giving me a stimulant before a major client meeting. Yes, enough to make you appear unstable or erratic. Not enough to kill you. I swallowed hard. So Richard didn't want me gone, just ruined. Michael's eyes narrowed slightly. We don't know that yet. But we both knew. This wasn't about health. This was about power. Before I could respond, there was a knock on the door. A nurse from the hospital, red hair, navy scrubs, peeked in. Sorry to interrupt, she said. Are you Amanda Brooks? My chest tightened. Yes. She stepped inside, closing the door behind her. I was asked to deliver an update. Chloe woke up around 5 a.m. She's stable, still drowsy but speaking clearly. I nodded, unsure how to feel relief, anger, both. She asked to see you. The nurse continued. Me? Yes. She said you'd understand. I exhaled slowly. Michael stood. I think you should go, but record everything. Do not go alone. You're not just a witness now. You may be a target. The warning settled deep into my bones. The hospital felt colder today. More sterile. More real. Chloe lay in the bed, pale, eyes tired but lucid. When she saw me, she didn't speak. She lifted her hand weakly and motioned for me to close the door. I did. Then she whispered, He told me you were dangerous. I forced my voice to stay steady. Richard? She nodded. He said you were trying to push him out of the company, that you were building alliances behind his back, that if the Henderson deal went through under you, the board would have proof he wasn't needed. Tears welled in her eyes. Not guilt, but humiliation. I thought I was protecting the company, she said. Protecting him. Then she looked at me. Really looked. And then the symptoms started, and I realized he never cared about protecting me. Silence settled between us. Finally, she whispered, He wasn't planning to ruin your career. My breath hitched. He was planning to ruin both of us. Her words echoed in my mind long after I left the hospital room. He wasn't planning to ruin your career. He was planning to ruin both of us. The final puzzle piece clicked into place. Richard didn't care who took the fall. Me, his niece, or both. As long as I lost the Henderson account and didn't become VP, he was satisfied. Fear and anger mixed in my chest, sharp and metallic, like the smell of that coffee cup. But beneath everything was something else. Resolve. It was time to end this. Back at the office, Michael was waiting near the elevators. His expression told me everything before he opened his mouth. We confronted Richard, he said quietly. He denied everything until we showed him the recovered messages and server logs. And? I asked. He asked for a lawyer. Of course he did. We've suspended his access and the board has been informed, he continued, but there's one final matter. He handed me a document. Printed, stamped, notarized a formal statement. As I read the details, my heart slowed. It wasn't just about the attempted sabotage. There was more. Documentation proving Richard redirected company funds to a private consulting shell under Chloe's name money that should have gone to client development and project growth. He wasn't just trying to destroy careers. He was trying to hide financial fraud. And if Chloe hadn't confessed what she did, I might have never found out. When I finished reading, Michael spoke gently. We need a witness willing to testify, someone directly affected, someone with evidence and credibility. I exhaled. You're asking me. I'm asking if you're willing. I thought back. Late nights, sacrifices, working twice as hard to earn half as much recognition. All those years, I thought I was competing with circumstance. But I'd been competing with sabotage. I looked up and nodded. Yes, I'm willing. The board meeting that afternoon didn't feel real. 20 executives sat around the polished mahogany table, faces tight, hands folded, eyes sharp with a mixture of fear, interest, and disbelief. Richard sat at the end, arms crossed, jaw clenched. When I entered, whispers rippled through the room. The chairwoman, a woman named Evelyn Shaw, motioned for silence. "Ms. Brooks," she said, voice steady, "you requested to speak." I didn't bring notes. I didn't need them. I told the truth. Not theatrically, not emotionally, just clearly. I explained the coffee, the messages, the hospital call, the recovered emails, the fraud, the plan to discredit me and use Chloe as both shield and scapegoat. I didn't embellish. The facts were damning enough. Richard stiffened, his voice breaking as he finally snapped. "She doesn't understand corporate strategy. She's emotional, reactive." But Evelyn shut him down immediately. "Enough." Silence swallowed the room. Evelyn turned to him, voice colder than anything I'd ever heard. "You knowingly endangered an employee, manipulated another, and risked a multi-million-dollar client. This isn't strategy. It's misconduct." Richard's eyes darted around the room, searching for allies, and finding none. Finally, security entered. And just like that, the man who built his career on intimidation was escorted out. Quiet, shaking, defeated. Chloe wasn't there. She was still recovering, but somehow I knew she would hear every detail. 3 weeks passed. The investigation expanded. Legal consequences followed. Richard was charged with embezzlement, workplace endangerment, and tampering with employee safety. Chloe cooperated fully, providing emails, voice recordings, and timeline details. She wasn't innocent, but she wasn't evil either. She was impressionable. Her greatest mistake was trusting the wrong person. One morning, as I poured myself a real cup of coffee, the safe kind, I got an email from the board. My heart pounded as I opened it. Subject: Henderson renewal plus promotion. My hands shook reading the words. "We are pleased to inform you that effective immediately, you are promoted to Vice President of Client Strategy. The Henderson account has formally renewed under your leadership for another 5-year term." I sat back and let the relief wash over me. Not triumph, not revenge, just peace. That afternoon, I drove to the hospital one last time. Chloe sat up straighter when she saw me. "You got the promotion," she said softly. I did. She nodded, eyes glassy. Not envious, just tired. "I never wanted to be him," she whispered. "I just wanted to make him proud." I exhaled slowly. "Sometimes," I said, "the people we're trying hardest to impress are the ones we should walk away from." She swallowed hard. "And you?" she asked. "What did you want?" I smiled. Not bitter, just honest. "To finally stop defending a place at the table," I said, "and start owning one." She nodded, and I saw something change in her expression, accountability, maybe even growth. As I walked out of the hospital, cool air filling my lungs, I knew one truth clearly. Success isn't about stepping on others. It's about refusing to let anyone bury you. And sometimes, the most powerful revenge is simply surviving and rising anyway.